Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the speakers as well that came before me. As everyone heard, it has been quite of a very collaborative process to reach here, despite the harsh times, I guess, that we all are passing through. So we had to postpone this training several times, but I think it was a good solution to do this introductory webinar to introduce a bit what we plan to do and hopefully be able to see everyone mid next year or early next year already in Venice. So I'm Dania Abdul Malak. I'm the director of the ETC-UMA, so that's a European Topic Center within the University of Malaga that works closely with the European Environment Agency and collaborates also in several European and international processes, among them this nice collaboration that we had in here. So I was asked to give an introductory talk about ecosystem-based management, something we work here in the center quite about. That will be part of the training course, so I will be as focused as possible, as short as possible, and I have prepared quite some rich in terms of content slides, and we will be sharing them with you in case you want to read more, and of course you can contact us for more information. Very well, so I'll start my presentation now. I would like to focus on 5 main points. Of course, thinking about what ecosystem-based management processes are or approaches are, we need to understand very well the foundation of human well-being, which is my first point in the presentation. Then I would like to talk a bit about where we are in terms of humanity. There are very important scientific assessments that have been coming out, the latest 2 days ago, showing where we are, and that's important for us to have as a basis in order to get introduced to the need. Why do we need ecosystem-based management? Why do we need to recognize that we are part of the ecosystems, not above the ecosystems? And then how can we make sure that we go from concepts to practices and we ensure a socio-ecological resilience as well. And I will introduce you finally with a short video to what we from this Mediterranean biodiversity protection community that I coordinate myself since 2016 are doing, and hopefully we see interests in becoming even a broader community with your support and participation. Very well. The first point. So biodiversity is the foundation of human well-being. We need to understand ecosystems in order to base on science, so on evidence, any advice we give to managers. No, that's this typical course on science, practices, and policy interfaces. So how can we go out of our scientific bubbles, which are very important, and communicate, coordinate, and liaise, and make sure that we make a change, right, in processes. Okay, on that point, here is a slide that's showing a bit in the heart of this butterfly where biodiversity stands. So biodiversity, it's all of us. We are part of that. It's about processes. It's about understanding the benefits that biodiversity brings to humans, in addition to the nice aspects that biodiversity can have. In many cases, it's the basis of any functional and structural traits we depend on. So this is really important. I mean, there is lots of material in this slide. You will have access to them later on. We rely on nature, and it's in the heart of any decision that we need to be taking. The biotic interactions, the species richness around us, the genetic diversity among us, the ecological processes that we rely and depend on, the functional traits that biodiversity provides us with, which is very important for our well-being, and so on. So that's mainly to refresh our minds on where we stand and how biodiversity interacts with the rest, right? From what you see on the left-hand side now, which is these ecosystems based on the biodiversity as an anchor, right? And all the processes that we saw in this butterfly, the previous slide, ecosystems have function. These functions, if they are in a good state or if they are in a good condition, they could provide them, right? If they provide these functions, then we could, as social or socioeconomic systems, depend on, which means our nutrition, which means the clean air we breathe, the water, the clean water we drink, our health, all of that depends on that foundation, plus the values. So we have some economical values. We finally sell natural products to others, and we live from what we sell. So if this foundation or this anchor is lost, it has a certain value that we need to be very well aware of. What happens if the responses are, in a way or another, the responses being what we do at the level of institutions, governance, businesses, policies, different sectors, right? All of that is influencing, finally, this state or condition of ecosystems, and we need to find the right balance. And now about the ecosystem services, that's just to highlight again that the ecosystem services rely on the supply of the services, and that is quite closely linked to a well-functioning ecosystem, meaning a healthy biodiversity. So understanding that biodiversity is the anchor of anything we do, we need to make sure that any action, any management, any practice, any decision we take on biodiversity, which means us and the surroundings, the natural surroundings, needs to be sustainable. That was just a basis to have very clearly in mind, and now we go on where we are. No, so the report that came 2 days ago from the CBD, that was the long-awaited global report on biodiversity, came with a headline that humanity is at a crossroads. Right? It's not the first one. There has been lots of very important global and regional reports coming in the last few years. They all are going to the same indication. They are alerting on the escalating human impacts on ecological systems. They are raising the concerns about the consequences on human well-being. So finally, it's clearly now linked that if we do not manage our systems or we live better in harmony with nature, these would have effects on our human well-being. And they call urgently for transformative change in how we see and we link with nature. That's a report. It's a pity that this is, yeah, okay. I'll try to put it that way so you can see also the sources of my slides. That's the report that came last year, last May, the report on the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. That was the first global assessment done at all levels. And it came out last May 2019, calling for this unprecedented nature dangerous decline and species extinction rates that are really accelerating in the last decades. And they link this through an assessment of more than 4,000 scientists to 5 direct drivers of change in nature, which are directly linked to our human activity, being changes in land and sea use. So this is how we are changing our environment, our biodiversity around it, the direct exploitation of organisms, climate change, pollution, and invasive alien species, being the 5 major direct drivers of change in nature, with the largest relative global impact on us and our systems. More, I think, interestingly, now going out of biodiversity and biodiversity protection to socioeconomical systems, also last year, the World Economic Forum published the Global Risk Report 2019, that for the first time, and that's really alarming, it pushes, I don't know if you can see the on the diagram, I think there are five green cubes that are highest on the slide. So that's where the impact on livelihoods is highest, that corner up right corner, where you can see the green ones being extreme weather events, natural disaster, man-made environmental disasters, and biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse. These are out of the most worrying risks on global economy. So for the first time, the economical or socio-economical system is alarming about the impacts that we are doing on nature and the need to rethink what we do. And 2 days ago, this Global Biodiversity Outlook report that I just mentioned to you published that report, calling again for the need for transformative changes urgently to ensure human well-being and save the planet. So it's a direct message that we need to act. So this calls for a shift in the way we do business as usual across any sector and any activity we do and across ecosystems. It underlines the urgent need to act to slow and end further biodiversity loss. It outlines 8 transitions, so how we can really ensure these transformative changes, and it highlights certain examples in order to reach the vision of 2050, that's living in harmony with nature. Very well. So these to me are just also to put us all in where what the situation is and the need to really start implementing rather than doing using the conceptual approaches of ecosystem-based management. So what is ecosystem-based management? It's a tool, it's a holistic management tool to manage and use natural resources in a more sustainable way. It recognizes all the interactions within ecosystems, including humans being part of these biodiversity and ecosystems, rather than considering single issues, species, or ecosystem services in isolation. That's mainly the definition of EBM. So how can we ensure transformative changes? And that's an interesting, simple slide from Noah. That's just showing literally how the current practices are. These conventional management we still do. We did that a few decades ago on land, and we destroyed more of our land and land ecosystems, and now we are still doing that on the sea. So shifting from current practices to the goal, that's ecosystem-based management, means looking at the ecosystems globally, entirely holistically, not looking at an individual species, but looking at the habitat itself, at multiple species, their interactions, not looking at a human single activity, but looking at the cumulative activities and their impact on the ecosystems. So that's also for you, for more resources. It has several principles. No, ecosystem-based management, it needs to be built on knowledge. So we need to have a good baseline of understanding of where we are, what we are doing before taking our actions and decisions. We need to include all human activities, all the uses in what we plan, and not to take a single use or a single species. We need collaborative decision-making processes. So we need to co-design. People from different entities, from different fields of work need to come together and work together on that, on a final decision and practice to be developed. It needs to be sustainable on the longer term. We cannot plan for 1, 2, or 3 years. We need to plan for 10, 20, and 30 years at least. It needs to adapt and be flexible in time because things change, ecosystems change, and we need to have an adaptive management. It needs to be tailored, so depending on the space, on the time, our decisions might change, and they might change several times during the process, and this needs to be flexible enough to ensure that we adapt to this nature that surrounds us, that we are managing and planning. And co-governance is a very important angle. So there are many people that use natural resources, and they all need to be engaged in these processes through effective partnerships, through clear roles, through clear responsibilities. That's, yeah, from my side, just to show an example from what is the traditional or this approach we tend to use. That's the single species or sector. I'm interested in fisheries, I would go to fisheries. I'm interested in that species, I go and I just extract whatever I need from it. That's it, my role is this one. Ecosystem-based management is a total shift in that sense. So one species of interest is among an ecosystem. We need to understand all the species that depend in a way, or this species depends on, or sector that depend on other sectors in order to do our planning. And these ecosystem-based management approach need to be done for spaces around all the activities that are planned in that space. Very well. Now, while applying the EBM, these ecosystem-based management approach, we need to ensure that it's long-term, as we mentioned, and it ensures this socio-ecological resilience. So when we plan it, and now it's more into the course and this training that's much more linked to coastal and marine environments, the MSP processes, so the marine spatial planning processes, they need to embrace EBM, not only on paper, but really in the real processes. These are long-term processes that every country, every region need to be doing, and they need to ensure all these principles that we discussed before, they are integrated with them, because they would ensure then the long-term socio-ecological resilience, so the resilience of the ecological system, but also the local socio-economies of the spaces that are planned, and they would include the uncertainties, which are the future, how things will be changing. We need to be adaptable. So that needs to include these, as well as the conflictive uses. A space is a limited entity, and the decisions need to make sure that they are sustainable and they are inclusive. And here with our colleague, Amir Abdullah, we had worked on a conceptual approach on where we are, or how the systems, if they are normally managed, so this business as usual, in many cases, especially in the Mediterranean, that's a hotspot for many of us, the systems are literally collapsing and the future is not promising. So as you could see, there is this ecosystem resilience thresholds that we normally planning a year by year, on a year-by-year perspective, being reactive to any problem we have, managing individual species or individual habitats or individual sectors is not going in the right direction. And the future, as I mentioned, is not promising. So we need to shift from this way of management into an incremental ecosystem-based management approach, which means managing functional traits, managing groups of species, managing habitats, and managing sensitive ecosystems, ideally. That's linked to this integrated approach of managing several sectors under one entity, under one site, coordinate the management at different levels, so it can go from local to global level. The systems are connected and our management needs to be also effective in that sense. Managing 3 to 5 year perspective, and managing activities with these flexibilities in mind, that if something happens, we need to adapt and change based on that need. The tools that are used so far for that, it's mainly about linked to protection and conservation, while for the others, that's much less restrictive. And this is where, this is the third step that's really important to integrate and embrace this socio-ecological resilience point of view in order to bend the curve and to create future resilient systems and environments. And how this is done mainly by managing holistically the ecosystems and proactively engaging whenever it's needed, looking into the future, looking to the upcoming few years. So as you see, this is a long-term perspective of 20 or more years. It's managing ecosystem functions, it's managing the processes and their services at all times, and adapting to the situation as needed, and managing all sectors together in a co-management perspective, engaging the stakeholders that need to be engaged. So this is a little bit this introduction towards these concepts and the practices that need to be done. I will, as I mentioned, I will be sharing these slides, and in case of questions, please do ask, and we will try with the time that we have allocated to reply to them. And now I want to just go quickly to this initiative that has started since 2016. I'm coordinating since then. It has been funded, or it is still being funded, that's the second stage of it, by the Interreg Mediterranean program. The community is called the Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community. It includes by now around 300 institutions, mainly Mediterranean and European, and promotes and defends these concerns that I have been raising before, defending the need for effective biodiversity management, for the need for using practically ecosystem-based approaches in practices and decision-making, and fostering a constant dialogue among different stakeholders, including policymakers, protected area managers, scientists, the private sector that we try more and more to include in the discussions in order to achieve a longer-term, more sustainable development goals. That's, I think, my last slide, and that's just a representation of part of this community. That's during the European Parliament Act that we had in December 2018, where we have set this declaration on ecosystem-based approaches, and that has been then signed by several regional stakeholders, including policymakers and local governors and lots of scientists and NGOs. So we work inside marine protected areas. It's a coastal marine community mainly. We have a focus on what needs to be done inside marine protected areas, more effectiveness, more connectivity, ensuring the functionalities of the ecosystems, but we are also very sure that that cannot be only the limitation. We need to go broader. We need to work on the whole coastal and sea space, ensuring ecosystem-based approaches, practices being implemented and effectively taking shape in the future. From my side, I think that's it. I would like to have the video. I think that's, yeah, these are my main messages. I think these 5 points that I have discussed before. And before closing the presentation, I would be really happy to show you a 3-minute video on the content of this ecosystem-based management declaration, and I would be really happy if you join these concerns, and if you would like to be a signatory of it, you can always let us know. Okay, I don't know if Liz, you would be showing us the.
It's me, Dania. It's Mireia. I will share my screen with a video.
Thank you.